So let me give you a little bit of backstory. Let me set up my character arc for you. Back in the day, I was sort of casually into football, like a lot of people probably were and are. There's nothing wrong with being a casual fan, by the way. I don't know why that's an insult. Casual fans are the backbone of anything because they usually do other things but watch it anyway. Either way, so this was a while ago, and one of the first games of football that I ever watched that truly got me hooked on the sport in general was Super Bowl 47. And if you know, you know. Blackout excluded, that game was awesome. Call it whatever you want. The Blackout Bowl, the Har Bowl, the Kobe Johnson won MVP Bowl. Um, yeah, that's one of the several very, very good Super Bowls that there were this decade. Anyways, at that point in my life, I had sort of already been swaying towards the Packers as my team, quote unquote. But this game really did something different. I've always had a soft spot in my heart for the Ravens because of that. The Packers are still my main team, and that's not gonna change. That will not change. But, there's always one team or a couple of teams that are sort of in your area. And, the Ravens are kind of in my area. I'm in Virginia. But that you just have like a soft spot for. When you see them succeed, you're like, yeah, I got you, yeah. But, anyways, the Ravens fill that role for me. They've been very, very successful over their entire existence of about 20-ish years, 25 years, and that's really, really hard to do. Most of that success can be attributed to their incredible front office over that time that has been putting players in the positions and putting coaches in the positions that they need to win. And not only to just, win and have a good season over there, but be a legitimate Super Bowl contender for many, many years out of their existence. And the headmaster of that entire front office, that incredible Ravens front office and culture, up until his retirement last year, was general manager Ozzie Newsome. Ozzie Newsome, as a GM, which I will get later on in this series, has a case for the Hall of Fame as a general manager, just outright. He was incredible at his job for a long, long time and built Baltimore the way it was today. If not for the fact that he's already in the Hall of Fame as a player. And so this is going to be part one of a two or maybe even three-part series. I don't know. It's really based more along how much footage this DSLR can record rather than what I want to have. This will be about his accomplishments both on the field and off the field. So now let's start with part one of the two Hall of Fame careers of Ozzie Newsome, his career on the field. Roll the intro. I don't really have a good intro right now, but on this channel I like to talk sports. Ozzie Newsome Jr. was born in 1956 in Muscle Shoals, Alabama. He was the middle child of 5 siblings. And if you know anything about the history of rock and roll or music history in general, you would know the name Muscle Shoals, but that's neither here nor there. That may be another video if anyone is interested. Am I kidding? 3 people watch this fucking channel. Not even 3, it's me. His career in organized football began in the 8th grade. However, his athletic abilities also extended to baseball. At the age of 14, he was selected to a youth baseball all-star team in his area of the state that ended up advancing to their sectional tournaments in Alabama. Newsome would go to Colbert County High School, a Class 3A school, and play football, basketball, and baseball. In 1971, Colbert County would go 10-0 but lose in the first round of the state playoffs. And then in the following year, in 1972, naturally, Colbert County would go 13-0, winning the 3A state title, and Newsome being a critical part of that, playing both wide receiver and defensive end for the team. While he originally professed that his first love was baseball, he then declared that football was his favorite sport in his junior year after scholarship offers started rolling in. In his senior year, the Colbert County football team would go 8-2. He started at forward on the basketball team that won the 3A state title, and played both catcher and first baseman on their baseball team that lost in the 3A 4A championship that year. After that year, in 1974, Newsome would make his choice of college. He would be going to Alabama, playing not only for that program, but the legendary Paul Bear Bryant. Newsome would play 2 main positions at Alabama, as a split end, which today we would know as an X receiver, and tight end, which he would become known for and play the most in his entire career. Over Newsome's time at Alabama, 1974 to 1978, they would win 3 SEC championships, go 42-6, and compete for national titles in 1977 and 78. In 1977, they were one of 5 teams that year that finished 11-1, but Notre Dame would become the national championship after defeating undefeated Texas in the Cotton Bowl. 1978, though, would be an incredibly unusual year where Alabama would be named co-national champions alongside USC. Alabama was claimed national champion by the AP poll after defeating the former number 1, Penn State, in the Sugar Bowl as the number 2, which made them the number 1. However, in that season, they would go 11-1, and the only team they lost to was USC, who won the coaches poll and had the same record at 11-1. Side note, Oklahoma also won 11-1, but was ranked number 3, even though they beat the one team they lost to, Nebraska, in the Orange Bowl. Despite that kerfuffle, Newsome would finish with an illustrious college career, even by Alabama standards. He was second all-time in career receptions and first all-time in career receiving yards by the time he was finished playing for the school. The Wizard of Oz, as he came to be known, snagged 102 passes for 2,070 yards and 16 touchdowns over the course of his college career. He also did this while averaging 20.3 yards per catch, which was an SEC record that would stand for about 20 years. He also accomplished most of this in the incredibly run-oriented wishbone offense of Bear Bryant, which was an achievement in and of itself. Bryant would go on to say of Newsome that he was, quote, the best end in Alabama history, and that includes Don Hutson. And to be fair, this still was the 70s, and Alabama now has, let's say, a rich history of wide receivers, even though Newsome was mostly a tight end. In 1992, Newsome would be inducted into the Alabama Sports Hall of Fame, and in 1994, inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame. With the 23rd pick in the first round of the 1978 NFL Draft, Newsome would be selected by the Cleveland Browns. And remember, this was before they were absolutely awful. This was pre-move Browns. Newsome was selected to play a tight end, as there was discussion over what position he would play, as for tight ends of the time, he was definitely on the small side, which was proved by the fact that the Browns made him add 20 pounds to his weight to make him a more dominant blocker. However, the extra weight would not slow him down at all. Newsome would have 38 receptions for 589 yards and 2 touchdowns, along with 13 rushes for 96 yards and 2 more touchdowns that year, and that won him Cleveland Browns Offensive Player of the Year, and he was the first rookie to do so in 25 years. In 1979, there was no sophomore slump for him. He caught 55 passes for 781 yards and 9 touchdowns, all of which were Browns records for tight ends, and earned him an All-Pro nod, but he was not first team. At the tight end position, Newsome was a pioneer, becoming one of the first tight ends that was a truly downfield vertical receiving threat, alongside Kellen Winslow, who was his contemporary. And that cannot go understated. He was a primary receiving threat for the Browns during that time. Newsome was incredibly strong and athletic for his position, and could either go up and over most linebackers that were trying to guard him, could either go through most DBs that were assigned to guard him, God help you if you were, or just simply run faster than anyone assigned to guard him. For his entire career, he would average 12.1 yards per reception, and in 1981, he would have his first ever 1,000-yard season, along with 6 touchdowns that year on 69 receptions, and I will refrain from the obvious joke. In 1982, he had 682 yards and 3 touchdowns on 49 receptions, in a season shortened to only 9 games by the player strike, though. And in 1983, he had 970 yards and 6 touchdowns on 89 catches, and setting a Browns franchise record for receiving yards in a game with 191 on 14 receptions, which was a record that stood until 2013 when Josh Gordon had 261 yards in a game. In 1985, he made the Pro Bowl again, this time with lesser stats, with 62 receptions, 711 yards, and 5 touchdowns. This year, he would also win the Ed Block Courage Award after playing through several bad injuries. Newsome was, of course, part of the Browns teams that made it to 3 AFC Championship games in 1986, 87, and 89, losing to the Denver Broncos all 3 times. The first resulted in The Drive, where John Elway took the Broncos 98 yards for them to kick the game-tying field goal with only 39 seconds left, and then go on to win the game in overtime. 1987 would result in the fumble, where Ernest Biner, their running back, who was having an incredible game, fumbled at the 1-yard line, gave the Broncos possession, and the game was over. Biner had, of course, been instrumental in the Browns' furious comeback that game, as at one point they were down 21-3. The Browns would make it back in 1989, but the game wouldn't really be close, a 37-21 rout. However, through those years, Newsome would decline as he got older and suffered several injuries. He served less and less of a primary role in the offense. And his final season would be in 1990, which saw him win the Byron Whizzer White Man of the Year award, which is now renamed to the Alan Page Community Award, for service in and around the Cleveland area. This differs from the Walter Payton Man of the Year award, as it requires more service in the community of the player or the player's hometown, and less of just the broader requirements of the Walter Payton Man of the Year award. Another important distinction, the Whizzer White / Alan Page Award does not specifically require excellence on the playing field either. Newsome would retire after that season with 662 receptions, 7,890 receiving yards, and 47 touchdowns on the stat sheet. He still holds the all-time receptions and receiving yards records for the Cleveland Browns, even after all this time. He had the second longest reception streak in NFL history, with 150 consecutive games with at least one catch. Newsome has been inducted into both the Browns Ring of Honor and the NFL Hall of Fame as well. Newsome was a trailblazer when it came to tight ends, as receiving threats at tight end were not new at that point, but were very, very rare. Alongside Kellen Winslow, the tight end position would begin to evolve with them into what it is more today, as there are not only tight ends that are dominant blockers and solid receivers, but tight ends that could be receivers in their own right. Big, strong, fast, and can and will go up and get the ball over you, like a Travis Kelce or Mark Andrews. George Kittle is better after the catch, in my opinion. So, yeah. But that influence on the game cannot be understated, as the development of the position over the last few years has been incredible. And that can be traced back to Ozzie Newsome and Kellen Winslow, who I may make a video on at some point, and guys of those ilk in the early to mid 80s. So yeah, that was part 1. He would be retired for only 1 year before accepting a position with the Cleveland Browns as a scout. So that will be part 2. I will get around to recording that later, probably later on tonight, if I'm being honest. Just need to get this up and running. And if you stuck around this much, like and subscribe, all of that, especially if you want to see part 2. Deuces.